The Lord said that the tradition of men dressing as women goes back to the Windsors and even beyond them. God is directly pointing to the royal family in England. They are the Windsors. The Windsors. Everybody knows that Prince Charles and Prince Harry and Princess Diana, who is passed on, and Fergie and all the rest of them are what is known as the House of Windsor. And of course, Queen Elizabeth is no longer here with us, but that's the House of Windsor. That is among nations that still have monarchies, okay? This is a monarchy, as in they have a visible monarchy, even if they also have a government, and most of them also have a prime minister. But places like Monaco and places like, I think in Denmark, like that, they will still have their queen. The monarchy hasn't gone away. The most famous of it is the House of Windsor. And I want to let you know that the trannies came from England. The home of the tranning transitory transistor radios is the United Kingdom, and them in Europe. They have been doing it before America was a colony. They are the kings and queens, pun intended, of the trance, which means that they are participants in it, which means that you can look at the House of Windsor. I've said this in a previous prophecy, and you will see the men sitting there. You will see the hard-faced men. And the reason they're becoming hard-faced is because they're older now. God is speaking of a tradition where I've said that the young men in a family, when the baby is born, depending on the kind of strategic marriages that they want to get involved in, if they know that the King of Spain is becoming particularly powerful, when a little boy enters the family, they will start transing him from the get-go. They will not admit that a prince has been born into the family. They will say the wonderful little princess is here. Let me tell you something. If a thin and willowy boy is the only child of the king and queen, and from the time he was born they were dressing him androgynously because they were trying to see where the rights of succession were going to blow, and then no real girl came to be married off, it was that boy that they would start binding him. They would be binding fake bosoms on him. I have the evidence from the ancient days. Smoothly slipping their boys into dresses and then shipping them off to Verona and other places to have strategic marriages with the gay sons of other kings, building alliances on nothing but homosexuality and transsexualism. So of course it was going to come here on the boat. Of course it was going to come over on the boat. These are ancient practices. Spanish people do it. Italians do it. The British do it. The French, the Germans. In those days, with the kind of medical care that they had, the doctor had to be taken into the confidence. You could not just be rude to a medieval doctor, especially because he knew all the secrets of the crown. I've told you that the doctor knew, the butlers and the ladies in waiting and the ladies' maids know. There is no way that a woman is bringing up 6 buckets of steaming hot water to put it in a tub and then is told, bathe the princess. And this woman has birthed her own children and she knows a man's back when she sees one. That's why you see in these little shows that they do, they will always say to the ladies' maids, keep your tongue, hold your tongue before you lose it. Because if that tongue ever gets drunk at home and begins to say, I know the secret the queen is hiding, then you're going to end up on the gallows for saying that the queen is a man, for saying that the princess is a man. So this is a time-honored tradition, and God keeps stipulating and keeps pressing this aspect. Why? Because modern people want to fight that old traditions can ever bleed down to their time. Modern people want to act like having Siri and Alexa and bullet trains now means that secrets that have been hidden for hundreds and hundreds of years go away. The secrets don't go away. The secrets simply recede because they know that they will not be accepted in this time. And so the only way to continue what they want to do is to use subterfuge and deceit, hiding, smoke and mirrors. And then they get the added kick of being able to do it in our faces and laugh in our faces and even get us to support it. So the Windsors are a very old ancient family. Queen Elizabeth has had many, many, many other kings and queens in the tradition before her. She's the visible monarch that we knew now in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, 2020s. That's a lot of decades that this woman has been living. And God is saying, look beyond the Windsors that you know now. I'm here to let you know that as far back as you go into the bonnet era, as far back as you want to go into the era of bonnets, of horse and buggy, I'm talking about gas lamps, okay? I'm talking about, I went so far back that I stopped seeing pictures. I started to see only paintings. I started to see just paintings, 16, 14, and 15 this. And I want to let you know that the man in the bonnet goes all the way back to whenever they started having kings. So right away, it doesn't matter if you are an American or you're from any other continent in this world listening to this video. Right away, what I'm saying there tells you that this is something that is running far above your head, my head. If someone is telling you that the man in the bonnet with the high-necked dress, with a face that is unmistakably male, is going past the era of photographs and is now starting to creep up in paintings, kings, then what this tells you is that this is a process. This is an agenda that has actually nothing to do with us living now modern. If we are a highway running here, this agenda of men in dresses, men occupying, in many cases, the highest positions in society, this thing actually has nothing to do with the so-called plebeians running at the bottom. This is an agenda that has its own mind, that has its own plan, that has its own expected outcome. The one thing that I always say to people here in the Master's Voice is you have to stop thinking that these prophecies just exist for your opinion. You have to stop thinking that what God is doing and what Satan is doing is like some kind of TV show where they're going to ask you afterwards, well, Janice, what were your thoughts on today's episode? It's so much deeper than that. God is working things out at a high level. And even Satan, who is nowhere near as high as God, is also working things at a high level. And then human beings are down here. And the Lord is saying, ascend, rise in your understanding, rise in your thinking. Come up here, John. Come up here, John. Jesus kept saying when John was receiving the visions and the revelations of the book of Revelation, going back as far as you want into antiquity. In the days when letters had to be carried on the backs of a horse, people were trancing, people were cross-dressing. God says, please listen, because this now, historical kings were women and historical queens were men. So it wasn't just about raising your child and hiding the gender of the prince so that you could marry your son off to the Prince of Spain, who was going to also become king and gain a strategic alliance. It was the actual kings and queens sitting on the thrones themselves. He says historical kings were women, historical queens were men. Cross-dressing is one of the most time-honored ways to mock God. And women being coronated as men and men as women is an inside joke as old as forever. That is the reason why for some of these kings, they would make up so many myths of how many women they had. Yah said that the same way men lie now, claiming that they've slept with so and so women when they have not, that's the same way you get these wild, infamous stories of great libido that were invented to cover these women kings who were not doing anything but sleeping in bed at night after sitting on the throne all day. All inventions, stories to cover the head that wore the crown. So then which blog am I getting this one from? That God is saying, you might look at a Henry VIII, chubby man, he's appearing to us, face full of whiskers, which God has now revealed. Whiskers is nothing more than the end clippings of hair pasted onto a face for a day or for a season. Pasted on carefully. You and the butler, you and the lady's maid, and the butler is saying, sire, your laugh is a little too high. We men are usually a little lower. The same way we have watched so many movies. As the woman teaches a man how to be a woman to sneak him in somewhere. As girls learn how to be a man to sneak in somewhere. This cross-dressing theme is throughout all of America's movies. Everything that Americans have watched, laughed at, looked at has been these people declaring openly that yes, the men do dress as women and yes, the women do dress as men. They put it as comedy. Sometimes they put it as the severe longing of a soul to be what it's not, like that hideous movie with Eddie Redmayne in it. All along, the king, because he has the temperament of a woman, because he is a woman, he's in bed by 9 o'clock going to sleep so that he can come back and sit on the throne. And then they have to invent this wild story of a Casanova type of man to fit in with what men will approve of in a leader. So then all of those who are still trying to act wiser than God, why would God want to talk about celebrities? Why is this relevant? Why can't we let people live their lives? Because God is being mocked. And it's a pitiful thing when those who are inside the house of God do not care that God is being mocked. It is a pitiful thing when our hearts are not cut for the things that cut God's heart. And then we want to come and sit in front of him and tell him how much we love him. Who can claim to love someone and not be touched with the pains that pain them? Who can claim to have affection for someone? And then when they say, I'm wounded by this, then we say, that's okay, you'll get over it. As long as we don't cause offense to other people, because we need to let people live their lives. This is the thing that is offensive to God. That he says that cross-dressing is one of the most time-honored ways that he is mocked. So then you can have the understanding of what I always tell you here. When God brought the understanding of what the verse means, that a woman should not put on anything pertaining to a man. Hardline sticklers, legalist sticklers always say it means that no female should ever be seen in jeans. You wear pants, you're going to hell. And yet what the Lord brought to me is to say that when you put on with the intention that the adornment make you have the appearance of what you are not, therein lies the offense. I brought this thing back at least 2 years ago. I was astounded because there's so much debate about it in Christianity. A man should not put on, God is now saying, with the intention that you appear as something that you are not, which is why we have, as far back as then, the law that God brings, that he doesn't want to see men dressing as women and women dressing as men. They didn't even have pants in those days. Please bear in mind, at the time the verse was written in the Bible, there were no trousers for women. So God was clearly pointing to something else that modern people have now lost the heart of and started to flow along legalism as always. If you see how unhappy these boys are, it is very uncomfortable to be a 1500s, 1600s, 1800s young man watching all the young men play soccer, ride polo, kiss girls in the stable, and then you are going, Mrs. Pettigrew, you hate that life. You hate it. I found queens in Spain. You look at the man. You look at the man. He's got a tiara. He's got neck jewelry. A whole man, freshly baked from Whole Foods. They mostly look so unhappy because it's horrible to have to live your entire life as a woman. Women have fought wars. Joan of Arc led France to repetitive victory, and very few people knew that she had breasts. Same with Famulan. She's not just a movie, she's not just a song. Famulan is a real person. I found pictures of American women, British women who went into battle. There was a woman who was so good in battle that when she was discovered in the 3rd year of fighting, the army was like, you know what, sis? Keep the party going. She was such a fantastic soldier that when the people in power found out about it, they allowed her to keep fighting, and all the men in the regiment knew and did not approach her for sex. They treated her like a brother, and they gave her her privacy when she needed it. She was that good of a soldier. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? The thing with me is when I come upon truth, once I apprehend truth, I'm not letting it get away from me for any reason. I don't care who doesn't agree. I don't care who doesn't believe it. These people are practicing effeminacy and they're practicing sodomy right in front of our faces. So if you're wondering why the judgment is huge, why the judgment is sweeping, why the judgment is so angry, why the judgment is coming upon us like a thundering tsunami, it is because God has always been telling us that the entire land is defiled. The entire land is in darkness, he has been saying. The entire land, he says, in the midst of deceit, my people dwell. Now you're seeing simply another leg of it. You have given yourself anorexia, bulimia, depression, mental illness, and some young women have been victims of suicide, trying to be thin like these men. And the unspoken why is, what does God hate? What does he hate in this world? He hates homosexuality. You can't have transing without homosexuality. They're two ears on the same rabbit. You cannot say, I have uncovered males dressed as women. And then most of you, the reason that you're reeling and bouncing against the walls of your house is, if a Williams sister is a Williams brother, the first question on your mind is, that dude that's in the house. Yes, you're getting 2 for 1. You're getting the sin of the effeminate that the Bible is against, and you're getting homosexuality.